The cabin of Flight 247 to New York was buzzing with the usual pre-flight hum, passengers stowing bags, flight attendants offering polite smiles, the faint clink of champagne glasses in business class. Then everything stopped. A man strode down the aisle, his boots thudding with purpose, and trailing behind him wasn't a suitcase or a designer dog carrier, no, it was a calf. A real live, wide-eyed calf, its hooves clicking awkwardly on the carpeted floor. A laminated emotional support animal tag dangling from its neck like a VIP badge. His name was Jake, a wiry guy in a denim jacket, exuding the kind of confidence that screamed trouble. Heads turned, jaws dropped, and a ripple of gasps spread through the cabin. "Sir, you can't bring that on board," a flight attendant named Lisa blurted, her clipboard trembling slightly as she blocked his path to seat 3A. Jake didn't flinch. He pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket and waved it like a flag of victory. "It's all legal," he said, his voice loud enough to carry over the murmurs. "This is my emotional support animal. Helps me with my flight anxiety. Federal law says I'm good." The passengers exchanged looks, some amused, some horrified. A kid in row 12 whispered, "Mom, is that a cow?" While an older man in a suit muttered, "This is why I hate flying commercial." Lisa skimmed the document, her brow furrowing. It looked official, stamps, signatures, the works, but something felt off. She hesitated, glancing back at the galley where her supervisor was already dialing the captain. "Sir, please wait here," she said, her tone clipped. Jake shrugged and plopped into his seat, the calf settling beside him with a soft moo that sounded almost smug. The woman in 3B, a sharply dressed lawyer named Sarah, lowered her laptop and glared over her glasses. "You've got to be kidding me," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. The air thickened with tension, the kind that promises chaos is just one spilled drink away. Little did anyone know that moment was coming sooner than they thought. The cabin had barely settled from Jake's grand entrance when the first moo erupted, loud, unapologetic, and perfectly timed to drown out the safety briefing. Heads whipped around as the calf shifted in its spot next to Jake, its tail flicking like it owned the place. Lisa, the flight attendant, darted a panicked glance toward the galley, but before she could radio for backup, chaos struck. The calf lurched forward, its clumsy hooves knocking over Jake's tray table and with it, a full glass of orange juice that splashed straight onto Sarah's open laptop in 3B. "You've got to be kidding me," Sarah exploded, leaping to her feet as the sticky liquid seeped into her keyboard. She yanked the device up, shaking it futilely while amber droplets rained onto her pristine blazer. "This is a $3,000 machine, and I've got a deposition due tomorrow." Her voice was a razor, cutting through the stunned silence. Jake leaned back, hands raised in mock surrender. "Hey lady, accidents happen. He's just a little nervous, first flight and all." The calf let out another bellow, as if to punctuate his point. The cabin erupted. A businessman in 4C shouted, "This is outrageous. Get that thing off the plane." While a young woman in 5A, clutching her phone, giggled and started filming. "This is going viral," she muttered, zooming in on Sarah's furious face. But not everyone was against Jake. A scruffy guy in a trucker hat from 6D piped up, "He's got rights, man. Emotional support animals are protected." Sarah spun toward him, eyes blazing. "Rights? Tell that to my ruined laptop and the rest of us who paid for a peaceful flight." The argument snowballed. Passengers picked sides, some cheering Jake's freedom, others demanding order. Lisa tried to intervene, her voice drowned out by the rising tide of yells. Then came the tipping point. The calf, perhaps sensing the chaos, reared its head and knocked over another drink, this time a soda, soaking the armrest between Jake and Sarah. Sarah slammed her laptop shut and turned to Lisa with a steely glare. "If you don't get this circus under control, I'm suing this airline for every penny it's got." The threat hung in the air, sharp and real, as the plane's engines hummed beneath them, still grounded, waiting for Simeone to take charge. The cabin of Flight 247 was a powder keg, teetering on the edge of explosion. Shouts bounced off the curved walls, blending with the calf's insistent moos into a symphony of discord. Sarah stood like a general, her ruined laptop clutched in one hand, her voice slicing through the din. "This is a disgrace to every paying passenger here," she snapped, pointing at Jake, who slouched in his seat, twirling a straw between his fingers with a smirk that screamed defiance. Lisa, the flight attendant, fumbled with her walkie-talkie, her voice trembling as she begged for guidance from the galley. "We've got a situation, yes, a calf, please advise." The static reply was drowned out by a fresh wave of passenger outrage. Then the cockpit door creaked open, and silence fell like a curtain. Captain Daniels emerged, a towering figure with silver streaks in his hair, and a stare that could freeze a storm. His uniform was impeccable, his cap tucked under his arm, and his presence alone sucked the air out of the chaos. "Enough," he said, his voice a low rumble that hit the cabin like a shockwave. "This plane stays grounded until I say otherwise. You," he leveled a finger at Jake, "start talking. Why is there livestock in my business class?" Jake sat up, brushing imaginary dust off his jacket, and launched into his defense with the confidence of a used car salesman. "Captain, this here's my emotional support animal. Name's Daisy. After a car wreck trashed my life, panic attacks. Nightmare's the only thing keeping me sane. I've got the paperwork all legit." He fished out the crumpled document and thrust it forward. Daniels took it, his eyes narrowing as he studied the text. Sarah pounced. "Oh, spare us the sob story. That thing just drowned my deposition in orange juice. Captain, I'm a lawyer. I insist you verify that so-called certificate. I'd stake my bar license it's fake." Daniels raised a hand, silencing her mid-tirade, and squinted at the paper. The seal looked official, but the edges were frayed, the signature smudged, red flags that tugged at his instincts after 30 years in the air. "Lisa," he said, handing it over, "get this to headquarters. Tell them to dig deep, and I mean now." Lisa nodded and scurried off, her heels clicking against the floor. The cabin held its breath, but the ceasefire didn't last. Daisy, perhaps bored by the standoff, swung her head and knocked Jake's arm, sending a half-empty coffee cup tumbling onto the floor. The dark liquid splattered across the businessman in Forcius' polished loafers, and he erupted. "For God's sake, muzzle that beast. I paid $2,000 for this seat, not a barnyard." The outburst reignited the crowd. The young woman in 5A, still filming, laughed nervously. "This is insane, I'm getting 1 million views easy." The scruffy guy in 6D shouted back. "Leave the man alone, he's got rights." A grandmother in 7B, knitting a scarf, chimed in unexpectedly. "I raised cows back in Iowa. That one's got spirit." Her chuckle only fueled the chaos, as voices clashed in a cacophony of support and scorn. Then a sharp jolt rocked the plane, a minor hiccup as the ground crew adjusted the jet bridge, and a collective gasp swept through the rows, amplifying the tension. Lisa returned, her face ashen, clutching the walkie-talkie like a lifeline. "Captain," she whispered, stepping close. "Headquarters says the vet on that former Harold Klein doesn't exist. No record, no license. They're calling it highly suspect." Daniel's jaw clenched, a steel trap snapping shut. He turned to Jake, his voice dropping to a chilling calm. "Son, you've got 30 seconds to explain why I shouldn't have you hauled off this plane in cuffs. And trust me, I don't bluff." The air in the cabin of Flight 247 crackled with tension, thick enough to choke on. Captain Daniels stood like a statue, his steely gaze locked on Jake, whose 30-second countdown was ticking down fast. The calf Daisy shifted restlessly, her hooves scraping the carpet, oblivious to the storm she'd unleashed. Jake swallowed hard, his earlier swagger fading as he scrambled for words. "Captain, I swear this is legit. I got that paper from a guy, a professional. I didn't mean no trouble." His voice cracked, a thin veneer of panic seeping through. Sarah laughed, a sharp, bitter sound that cut through the cabin. "A professional? What, some back-alley con artist? You're a fraud and that cow's a prop." She turned to Daniels, her tone commanding. "Captain, this man's wasted enough of our time. Call the authorities, I want him off this plane, and I want compensation for my laptop. This is a circus and I'm not the clown." Her words lit a fuse among the passengers, who erupted into a fresh wave of noise. The businessman in 4C, still wiping coffee from his loafers, bellowed. "She's right. I didn't sign up for this madness." The young woman in 5A, phone still rolling, chimed in. "Keep going, this is gold." Meanwhile, the scruffy guy in 6D doubled down, slamming his fist on his tray table. "Y'all are overreacting. He's got a condition, where's your compassion?" The grandmother in 7B, needles clicking, added fuel to the fire with a sly grin. Back in my day, we'd have butchered that calf by now and had steak for dinner. A ripple of nervous laughter broke out, but it did little to ease the chaos. Then a new voice cut through the fray, a low, steady drawl from row 8. Hold up, folks. I know this guy. All heads turned as a man stood up, his weathered face framed by a gray baseball cap. He was lean, unassuming, with sharp eyes that seemed to see through walls. Name's Tom. Private investigator. Ex-cop. Worked a case in Tulsa last year, same MO. Guy with a fake support animal, scamming folks for attention. That you, Jake Miller? The cabin went dead silent. Every breath held as Tom stepped into the aisle, pulling out his phone. Got a photo here, denim jacket, cocky grin. Matches to a T. Jake's face drained of color, his hands gripping the armrests. That's not me. You've got the wrong guy. But the lie hung limp in the air, and Daniels didn't buy it for a second. Lisa, he barked. Get security on the line. Tell them we've got a potential fraud and a livestock violation. Lisa nodded, her fingers trembling as she relayed the order. Sarah seized the moment, stepping closer to Jake. You're done. You think you can waltz in here, ruin my work, disrupt this flight, and play the victim? I'll see you in court. Hope Daisy's got a good lawyer. The calf, as if on cue, let out a deafening moo and lurched forward, knocking over Jake's backpack. A cascade of items spilled out: energy drinks, a selfie stick, and, damningly, a stack of flyers advertising emotional support animal certifications, $99, guaranteed. The crowd gasped and the businessman in 4C shouted, I knew it! A damn grifter! The young woman in 5A zoomed in, whispering, Oh, this is huge. Even the grandmother stopped knitting, peering over her glasses with a TSK. Well, ain't that a kick in the pants? Just then the plane jolted again, another shift from the jet bridge. Or maybe the engines testing their patience. A woman in 9D shrieked, clutching her armrest, and the tension spiked higher. Tom, the investigator, crossed his arms and stared Jake down. I'd start talking, pal. That certificate's toast, and I've got contacts at the FAA who'd love this story. Jake shrank in his seat, sweat beading on his forehead, his bravado crumbling like a house of cards. Daniels leaned in, his voice a quiet thunder. You've got no moves left, son. Either you walk off this plane or they drag you off. Your call. The cabin of Flight 247 was a pressure cooker ready to blow. Every eye fixed on Jake as he slumped in his seat, cornered like a rat in a trap. Captain Daniels stood over him, arms crossed, his ultimatum hanging heavy in the air. Walk off or be dragged off. The calf, Daisy, let out one last, pitiful moo, as if sensing the endgame. Jake's hand shook as he grabbed his backpack, stuffing the incriminating flyers back inside. But it was too late, the damage was done. Tom, the private investigator, leaned against a seat, his phone already buzzing with a text from an old FA buddy who'd eat this story alive. You're cooked, Miller, he said, almost casually. Better hope they've got Wi-Fi in lockup. Sarah, still clutching her ruined laptop, stepped into the aisle, her voice icy and triumphant. Captain, I trust you'll ensure this doesn't end here. I want a full report from my firm and a new flight, courtesy of this airline's negligence. Daniels nodded curtly. You'll get it, ma'am. This stops now. He turned to Lisa, who was already on the radio, her voice steady despite the chaos she'd endured. Ground control, we're pulling back to the gate. Send security, make it quick. The plane shuddered as the jet bridge reconnected, a low groan echoing through the fuselage. Within minutes, the cabin door swung open, and 2 airport police officers stormed in, badges gleaming, hands on their holsters. The taller one, a burly man with a buzz cut, barked, Jake Miller? You're coming with us. Fraud, public disturbance, and hell, we'll figure out the livestock charge later. Jake stammered. This is a mistake. I've got rights. But the second officer, a wiry woman with a no-nonsense glare, cut him off. Tell it to the judge. Hands behind your back. The cuffs clicked shut, and a wave of cheers erupted from the passengers. The businessman in 4C clapped loudly, his coffee-stained loafers forgotten. About damn time. The young woman in 5A, still filming, grinned as her live stream hit 50,000 views. Justice served while #mile-high takedown. The scruffy guy in 6D slumped back, muttering, Guess I was wrong. While the grandmother in 7B chuckled, her knitting needles flashing. Told you that calf wasn't worth the fuss. Should have made stew. Daisy was led off by a third officer, her hoofs clacking mournfully, later revealed to be a rental from a local farm. Another nail in Jake's coffin. As Jake was marched down the jet bridge, head bowed under the weight of his failed scam, the cabin buzzed with a mix of relief and glee. Daniels addressed the crowd, his voice firm but warm. Folks, I run a tight ship. No one gets away with lying and disrupting my passengers. We'll get you airborne soon, and drinks are on the house. A round of applause broke out, and Sarah, finally sitting down, accepted a towel from Lisa to wipe the last of the orange juice from her blazer. The airline, scrambling to save face, offered her a first-class upgrade on the next flight, along with a handwritten apology from the CEO. By the time the plane taxied back out, the story was already exploding online. The young woman's video, titled "Justice at 30,000 Feet," racked up 1 million views in hours, flooded with comments. Captain Daniels for president. That lawyer lady deserves a medal. Emotional support cow? More like emotional support con. News outlets picked it up: CNN, Fox, even a late-night comedian who quipped, "Next time, bring a support giraffe, Jake." The hashtag Mile High Mood trended nationwide. A testament to a flight where chaos met its match and justice landed with a satisfying thud. So there you have it, Flight 247, where a guy named Jake thought he could scam his way to fame with a rented cow and a sob story, only to crash land in a pair of handcuffs. Captain Daniels saved the day, Sarah got her justice and a free flight. And Daisy? Well, she's probably back munching hay, wondering why humans are so dramatic. But let's zoom out for a sec. This wild ride isn't just a one-off tale of midair madness. It's a mirror to our world right now, isn't it? Think about it. We're all stuck on this big ol' planet plane, dealing with folks who bend the rules, fake their way through, or spill metaphorical orange juice on our lives. Looking at you. TikTok scammers and crypto brothers. Jake's the guy who'd sell you an emotional support NFT for $99, while Sarah's the one calling out the BS, and Daniels? He's the rare boss who actually does his job. As for the rest of us passengers yelling, filming, knitting, weary, just trying to survive the turbulence of 2025, where truth's harder to spot than a vegan at a barbecue. Here's the lesson, served with a side of snark. Don't be a Jake. Life's too short to fake your way through, either to drag a cow into a mess you can't clean up. Stick to real support, friends, coffee, maybe a dog that doesn't trash a laptop. And if you're gonna pull a stunt, at least make it original. Emotional support cow? Please, that's so last season. Next time, try a support llama. Kidding. Or am I? What about you? Ever met a Jake in your life, someone who thought they could moo their way out of trouble? Drop your story below, I'm dying to hear it. And hey, if you love this roller coaster as much as that calf loved chaos, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. We've got more crazy tales coming your way, minus the livestock, I promise. Well, probably. See you on the next flight.